Are you someone who has a lot of water bottles laying around and not a lot of ideas for them? Well, let's do a quick craft today. I felt like the bottom of these water bottles looked really floral, so we should make some flowers out of water bottles. For this craft, you're going to need some water bottles. Actually, you're going to need a lot of water bottles and a pair of scissors to cut through all those water bottles. You're also going to want to grab a hole punch. A single one is preferred. It'll be difficult with a 3-hole punch, but not undoable entirely. You're also going to want to grab a hot glue gun and some hot glue gun sticks. Make sure you have the correct size, some paints, and a little paint sponge brush and some string. Oh yeah, and you're going to want to make sure you have a candle too. So before we get into the fun stuff, I want to show you how I go through all of my water bottle supplies and prep things for crafts. You can pretty much take this water bottle and separate it into 3 parts and do so many different crafts with them.
So the first 2 things that you're going to need is a water bottle and a pair of scissors. What we're going to do is we're going to separate this water bottle into 3 different pieces for this craft. We're going to use this bottom part right here. The middle part, we're going to use this bottom part right here. So we're going to start by taking the cap off. And then you're just going to want to, it's gonna crunch, and that's fine. Cut a little hole right here, so that way you can cut around. This. To get your bottom piece off. So this bottom piece we're going to use take this piece off because we don't need that. Now with this, it's going to look kind of like a triangle in the way that you do it, and you can cut this in one big solid piece because it's going to shrink down once we start manipulating it with fire. And I'll show you another way to cut this on the next bottle, but we're just going to do this curly Q way for this one right now. And then when you get to about here, you're going to straighten it out and cut. A nice straight line right here. So you're going to be left with this bottom piece like this. And this little piggy tail right here. So now when you're all done cutting, you'll have 3 different sets of parts.
Once you're ready to keep working on your project, you've reached the point where you may need to melt some things with fire. Now, for the tops of the bottles, for this particular project, we're going to do some cutting with them. So let me show you the patterns that I cut them in to give them the cool floral effect once melted and manipulated with heat from the flame. This one I'm going to cut about every inch into 5 total notches, and then I'm going to cut out the corners of each of those notch so that way it makes a point, kind of like you're cutting out little triangles from the top of each rectangle that you've cut, so I can make petals. Now for the next one, I'm going to be cutting every 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch to create tons of little tiny petal looking things. These ones come out kind of like sunflowers or daisies, so just have fun with it, whatever pattern you decide to cut. Now, this next part can be a lot of fun, but I definitely recommend exercising whatever safety precautions you need to do this, which may include doing this outdoors if you can't stand the way that burning plastic may smell. The goal, of course, is to not burn any plastic here, but you do have to find the sweet spot when it comes to getting the right amount of temperature and distance from the flame to get these to melt the way that you want them to. When you do find that sweet spot where they start to melt and bend and move, it's going to happen very, very quickly. So either work at a distance and take your time, or just accept what weird, happy manipulations come from your heat to plastic experience. I really do like the way that this one came out, but like I said, you have to be understanding of the fact that see how quick that's going to move, and it might not necessarily move in a direction that you want it to. Now, once you're done with the tops of your bottles, you're going to want to take the end side and just hold it over the flame long enough for the sharp edge to become dulled and turn inward, so it kind of creates a little bit of a button effect. And you'll see what I mean as soon as you move it from the flame, how it's all kind of curved in. Now, while I don't plan to use the middle piece of the bottle for this project, I'm going to show you how it does melt out and some suggestions of how you can use it. For this project in particular, if you did want to use it, simply pull it through the flame in a twisting motion to kind of keep that little spring action happening, and it will begin to harden and crumple and almost look like the icicles that you can hang from a Christmas tree. If you wanted to use them with today's project for any of the flowers that we're going to be making, you could simply just paint this green and then hot glue it to your finished pieces. So now, once all your pieces are prepped, you're ready to paint. We are deciding to keep it simple with this project and only using red, gold, yellow, and brown paints. You can use pretty much any brush that you want to on these. I used a regular paintbrush as well as some sponge style blotting brushes, which seem to be the preferred method for Violet. And I can't blame her. It does give a really nice effect on plastic. This took us one whole rainy afternoon to complete, and even Baby Shark helped out with painting the sunflower. Depending on your level of messiness with crafts and painting, I highly recommend putting down a plastic tarp. It's such a helpful cleanup tool as well. So this is what all of ours looked like when I set them out to dry. You're going to want to let them dry for at least a couple hours. Ours took, I want to say, about 2 to 3 hours to be completely dry, but that's going to vary depending on your paint. Oh, and in case you thought we forgot about the bottle caps. So we need to paint these different shades of brown so that way we can glue them inside our flowers. Okay, so we need to paint these to be the insides of our flowers. So now let's heat up the glue gun and paint some bottle caps. To paint your bottle caps, you're just going to want to grab a brown paint of your choice and a sponge brush blotter and just have a blast covering these right up. Now remember how we have 2 different types of flowers that we've painted? Well, let's just take that sponge brush and blot a center into our end bottle cap pieces to get this really cute floral effect. You could even use some white as an accent color if you wanted, but now it's time to finish these flowers. So let's get our hot glue gun and begin adding the centers to these bottle cap flowers. You're just going to want to take some hot glue and run it around the entire edge of the bottle cap and then press it inside each of the flowers. Ta-da! Now it's a flower.
Yay! Yay, Mommy! It's all mine! Yay, Mommy! Mommy, I love this flower!
Yeah, isn't that pretty?
Baby bird!
Whoa.
Baby wolf bird flowers. Is that right? Baby wolf bird flowers.
And then we'll do the sunflower.
Yay, Mommy, I love it!
All right, this one's still wet, so we gotta let it dry.
Oh, and if you were someone who went ahead and used these middle pieces of the bottle and painted them green, this would be the time where you would want to glue them to the bottom of each flower to make a stem.
I think these came out so cute. You can even take like white and make little white dots on these if you want. But these are so cute.
So this is how ours ended up looking when all is said and done with this craft. I'm in the middle of making a ton of these because the project that I need them for requires more than this amount.
I love how these came out. We're gonna have to make more. Do you think we should do more of the sunflowers?
So now while I go ahead and make so many more of these to complete the outrageous idea I have in my head, let me show you a quick way that you can finish these easily to have them also looking nice and hanging up on your wall. Now is the time for your one hole punch to really shine. You're going to take this little bad boy right here and punch holes in all of the bottom pieces of the plastic bottles that you just painted. Now, depending on what you want to use these for and how you want them to lay accordingly is going to determine how many holes you're going to want to punch in these. I generally punch one hole in the piece to allow it to flow freely on the string. If I want it to have a more secured look, I will punch 2 holes and then run the string through it accordingly. Which brings us, in fact, to our next part, the string. It doesn't really matter what you use to string them on. In fact, you can get pretty creative with this if you really want, using anything from hemp to ribbon to yarn. You could even use a fishing wire to give the illusion that these are hanging or floating in the air. Once you have figured out your project and set your measurements and all that, cut your string accordingly and then tie 1 knot like so at the top so you have a tiny little loop where you can hang these from. When you're making whatever measurements you do decide to make, you can plan to leave about a 1-inch allotment per flower that you plan to tie on there to account for the string used in knotting these in. The tops of the bottles, like this, will need to be tied with a double knot and can be secured with hot glue if you're feeling like they need a little bit of extra stay. You can really get creative on a couple of different levels with this, be it how many you want to string on there and the distance apart that you want to string them. I usually go for somewhere in between the 6-inch mark, or even the colors and types and the movement that you want them to have. For the other pieces that we've made and gone ahead and punched a hole in, we're going to string them up a little bit differently by just putting the thread, yarn, whatever medium you're using, through the hole that you've punched and sliding it to where you want it to fall on this thread and line, and then tying a knot to keep it in place firmly. You can go ahead and double knot these if you want. I find that it helps to keep them in place a little bit better, but that's all you need to do to secure this in its place. So you can string as many as you want and make the strings as long as you want and have fun creating whatever project it is that you want. For this one in particular, we ended up making some garland for our Christmas tree and even had a chance to string it up in the backyard to sneak a peek before we go collect our tree later this week. So what do you think? How did these come out? And do you think we did a good job with recycling these plastic bottles? Or is there a way we could improve? Let us know by leaving us a comment below. Personally, I think the sunflowers are my absolute favorite in this. I definitely want to make more of them, but we'll see what colors Violet likes too.
Hey, Mommy, I found a sunflower.
You did.
Mommy, I found a sunflower.
We made that. Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah, Mommy got it. And more bad guys. And baby got this too. Wow, baby got this guy too.